What happens when a boxing legend decides to trade knockouts for kush? A 420-acre desert empire, a mile-long lazy river, and luxury villas rising out of sand. Welcome to Mike Tyson's Cannabis Ranch, an otherworldly estate built by one of the most feared boxers in the world. Stick around as we explore this ultra-luxurious cannabis empire and uncover how Mike Tyson climbed to such a level. Mike Tyson's Cannabis Ranch, a desert mirage. You don't ease into Mike Tyson's Cannabis Ranch. Instead, you stumble into it. One minute you're driving through the sun-scorched outskirts of Southern California, where the land feels stubborn and unforgiving, and the next, you're staring at what looks like a mirage that forgot it was supposed to disappear. 420 acres of curated chaos stretch across the desert near Desert Hot Springs, California, where palm trees, luxury villas, and endless cannabis fields rise straight out of the sand like they were summoned rather than built. This place immediately messes with your sense of scale. The desert is harsh, quiet, almost confrontational in how empty it feels, and then suddenly you're surrounded by resort-level indulgence. Manicured pathways wind past cultivation zones where cannabis plants grow in disciplined rows, while just beyond them, glamping pods and luxury villas sit waiting for guests who didn't come here to rough it. Somewhere in the distance, water moves, not a mirage, but a literal mile-long lazy river carving its way through the desert like a deliberate middle finger to nature's rules. The energy here is strange in the best way. Part wellness retreat, part festival grounds, part business headquarters. You can picture yoga sessions happening at sunrise, bass-heavy concerts thumping after dark, and serious cultivation work unfolding quietly behind secured gates, all within the same property. There's a concert amphitheater designed for full-scale events, zones planned for education and immersion, and wide-open spaces that feel intentionally oversized, like the land itself is meant to breathe. What's important is what this place is not. It's not just real estate, and it's definitely not just a weed farm. This is a fully engineered lifestyle ecosystem designed to blend cannabis culture, tourism, education, entertainment, and luxury into one cohesive experience. The details are deliberate, but the full story stays just out of reach for now. Because the real question is how this desert mirage came to exist at all. And to understand that, you have to rewind to a kid from Brooklyn who learned to survive with his fists. Forged in violence, years that shaped Tyson. Long before Mike Tyson owned acres of desert luxury, he was a kid navigating neighborhoods that didn't offer second chances. Born in Brooklyn in 1966, Tyson grew up in an environment where chaos wasn't the exception, it was the daily routine. Crime was everywhere, opportunity was scarce, and by the time most kids were worrying about homework, Tyson was already collecting arrest records. By age 13, he'd been arrested nearly 40 times, often for fighting kids bigger, older, and tougher than himself. The lisp didn't help either. It made him a target, often an easy punchline in places where weakness was quickly punished. But fists change reputations fast, and Tyson learned early that violence, for better or worse, was a language people understood. That raw aggression might have burned him out early, if not for an unlikely intervention inside a juvenile detention center, where a boxing instructor noticed something different. Not just anger, but timing, power, instinct. That spark found its fuel when Cus D'Amato entered the picture. Cus wasn't just a trainer. He became Tyson's mentor, guardian, and, after his mother's death, the closest thing he had to a father. D'Amato introduced him to the peekaboo style, a tight, defensive boxing system built on slipping punches and exploding forward with devastating counters. It was controlled chaos, perfectly suited to Tyson's temperament. But Cus taught him more than boxing. He drilled discipline, belief, and fear conditioning into Tyson's psyche, convincing him he was destined for greatness long before the world agreed. Under Cus, the street brawler was reshaped into a machine designed for the ring. Tyson turned professional at just 18, and his debut ended exactly how it would become routine, a first-round knockout. Soon enough, fans weren't asking who would win. They were guessing how fast Tyson would finish his opponent. Televised bouts turned into countdowns, with knockouts arriving before audiences could get comfortable. And by his early 20s, Tyson wasn't just winning fights, he was terrifying the entire heavyweight division. The fastest rise and the hardest fall. Mike Tyson's rise didn't follow a curve. It was a plain vertical launch. In 1986, at just 20 years old, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in boxing history, a fact that still hasn't been topped. Within a year, he unified the WBA, WBC, and IBF titles, turning himself into the undisputed king of the division. Fighters didn't just lose to Tyson, they were dismantled. Larry Holmes, Tony Tubbs, and then Michael Spinks, whose fight with Tyson lasted just 91 seconds and cemented Tyson's image as the most feared man on the planet. He wasn't just strong or fast, he radiated inevitability. Opponents looked beaten before the bell even rang. But dominance built on discipline only lasts as long as the discipline does. When Cus D'Amato passed away, Tyson lost the anchor that kept his chaos focused. His split from trainer Kevin Rooney soon followed, and without structure, the cracks widened. In 1990, the unthinkable happened. Tyson lost to Buster Douglas in Tokyo, one of the greatest upsets in sports history. The myth cracked. The invincible man became human. And just like that, the collapse began. In 1992, Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison, serving 3. During incarceration, he converted to Islam, searching for grounding and meaning where fame and money had failed him. When he returned, the talent was still there, but the balance wasn't anymore. He reclaimed titles, but chaos followed closely behind. The 1997 rematch with Evander Holyfield ended with Tyson biting Holyfield's ear, a moment that shocked the world and cost him his boxing license. Though he was able to get into the ring again, knocking out opponents and drawing massive paydays, the fire inside was dimming. His final professional win came in 2003, and by 2005, Mike Tyson officially retired. For him, the talent was never the problem. Control was. And when the ring finally stopped saving him, Tyson went searching for something else that could. From pain to plant. When Mike Tyson finally stepped away from boxing, the silence hit harder than any punch ever had. The crowds were gone, the structure vanished overnight, and the chaos he'd been outrunning for decades suddenly caught up. Financial trouble followed quickly, mental health struggles piled on, and for the first time in his life, Tyson had to sit still with himself. Something the ring had never required him to do. That's where cannabis entered the picture, not as a business move or a branding opportunity, but as survival. Tyson has spoken openly about how marijuana helped him slow down, recover, and regain a sense of balance after years of living in constant fight mode. At his peak, he admitted to spending nearly $40,000 a month on cannabis, not because he was chasing excess, but because it became woven into his daily rhythm. Recovery, reflection, sleep, mood. It all ran through the plant. But over time, that relationship changed. What started as a coping mechanism slowly turned into a philosophy. Tyson began talking about cannabis as a tool for control, something that helped him manage pain, anxiety, and the emotional weight of a life lived at full volume. For a man whose entire career was built on destruction, this shift was quietly radical. Instead of breaking things, he started thinking about building them. The idea didn't form as a dispensary or a basic grow operation because Tyson wasn't interested in slapping his name on jars and calling it a day. What he imagined was something immersive, something that matched the scale of his personality and his story. A destination. A place where cannabis culture, education, wellness, and indulgence could coexist without apology. He started calling it a cannabis Disneyland, half joking, half dead serious. A space where people could learn how the plant is grown, understand its benefits, enjoy it responsibly, and still feel like they were on vacation. Community mattered. Education mattered. Experience mattered. This was less about selling weed and more about reshaping the conversation around it. In a strange way, the discipline that once made him dangerous in the ring had found a new outlet. Tyson's vision would soon turn into 420 acres of desert-level ambition. The Cannabis Wonderland Blueprint. The desert near Desert Hot Springs doesn't feel like the obvious place to build a cannabis empire, but that's exactly why it works. Spread across the Coachella Valley, Tyson's ranch occupies roughly 420 acres of open, sun-soaked land, with construction officially breaking ground in late 2017. From the beginning, this wasn't planned as a single development, but as a carefully zoned ecosystem designed to grow, host, teach, and entertain, all at once. The blueprint breaks the ranch into distinct zones, each with a clear purpose. At the core sits Cultivation, where cannabis production happens away from the chaos of guests and events. Surrounding that are immersion zones, where visitors experience the lifestyle side of the ranch, from accommodations to wellness spaces. Then come the operational hubs, quietly handling logistics, compliance, and infrastructure so the whole machine keeps running without friction. Sustainability plays a bigger role here than people expect. Solar power is baked into the design to offset the desert heat, while water recycling systems support landscaping and the ranch's most eye-catching feature, the lazy river. Instead of fighting the environment, the ranch adapts to it, using desert-friendly plants and layouts that minimize waste while still delivering visual impact. The guest experience is intentionally different from a typical cannabis resort. There are no on-site cannabis sales, which keeps the ranch compliant while reinforcing the idea that this isn't a dispensary. Guests bring their own product, register through an app-based system, and are free to consume across most of the property. It's less transactional, more communal, and far more relaxed. From a business standpoint, the ranch doubles as a physical amplifier for Tyson 2.0, which is Tyson's cannabis brand. Tours, events, education programs, and immersive experiences all feed back into the larger ecosystem, strengthening the brand without feeling like a billboard. And then there's the detail that feels almost unnecessary until you see it. Hydroponic viewing tunnels running beneath sections of the lazy river, allowing guests to float over live cannabis grows below their feet. It's subtle, surreal, and very on-brand. Why is Cannabis Ranch different from other such ranches? What separates Tyson's Ranch from a dozen other celebrity-backed cannabis projects is how seriously the cultivation is taken. This isn't mass production, and it definitely isn't about pumping out as much product as possible. The philosophy here is tight, controlled, and intentional, not unlike Tyson's own peekaboo boxing style. Everything starts with organic, pesticide-free growing practices, built around the idea that quality beats quantity every time. Plants are hand-trimmed rather than machine-cut, preserving delicate trichomes that carry flavor, aroma, and potency. After harvest, the cannabis goes through extended curing cycles that last over 30 days, far longer than industry shortcuts, allowing terpene profiles to fully develop instead of being rushed to market. The team focuses heavily on exotic genetics, constantly pheno-hunting to identify standout plants with unique effects and flavors. Growers talk about midnight strain selection sessions, walking the fields under the desert stars, testing, observing, and fine-tuning like scouts searching for the next heavyweight champion. It's obsessive, but that's the point. Every batch is lab-tested for potency, purity, and compliance, ensuring consistency without stripping the plant of its character. The goal isn't shock value, it's reliability. Cannabis that hits hard, tastes clean, and feels intentional. The peekaboo comparison fits almost too well. Tight grows, minimal waste, explosive results. Nothing flashy for the sake of it, but everything designed to deliver impact when it counts. Behind the scenes, anonymous growers tell stories of Tyson dropping in unexpectedly, asking questions, inspecting plants, and treating cultivation like a craft rather than a commodity. That hands-on energy filters through the entire operation. This isn't a name slapped on a product line. It's a system built with attention and intent, where every step feeds the next. And once the grow is perfected, the ranch turns into a full-scale playground, where luxury meets festival energy. By the time you move past the grow operations and into the heart of the ranch, the energy shifts in a way that's almost hard to describe. And it's not some wellness retreat where everyone whispers and sips cucumber water. It's louder than that, something that's designed to feel alive. Spread across the property are more than 50 luxury villas, each positioned to feel private while still connected to the larger experience. These aren't copy and paste resort rooms. Floor-to-ceiling glass pulls the desert inside, balconies overlook cultivation fields, and interiors are designed to feel more like modern homes than hotel suites. Infusion bars, spa-style bathrooms, and outdoor lounges make it easy to forget where you are, until the sun starts dropping and the desert lights up around you. For guests who want something closer to the land, the ranch leans into glamping, but with Tyson-level upgrades. Elevated pods sit above the desert floor, giving guests panoramic views of the stars without sacrificing comfort. Nights out here are quiet in a way that feels intentional, the kind of quiet that lets conversations stretch and thoughts slow down. At the center of the property, plans call for a 200-room boutique hotel built around recovery and wellness rather than excess. THC-infused spa treatments, cryotherapy rooms, cannabinoid-focused therapies, and relaxation spaces turn the hotel into a reset button rather than a party hub. It reflects a version of Tyson that values recovery just as much as adrenaline. Entertainment still plays a massive role. A 5,000-capacity amphitheater anchors festivals and live events, while an Olympic-scale wave pool brings unexpected Vegas energy into the desert. Even the putting course feels playful, lined with cannabis topiary that makes it clear this place doesn't take itself too seriously. Then there's Tyson University, a 10-acre campus dedicated to cultivation education and certification. It's practical, unflashy, and quietly powerful, the kind of infrastructure that suggests this place is meant to last. From bankruptcy to brand power. To really understand why this ranch matters, you have to rewind to a version of Mike Tyson that most people forget. Not the heavyweight champion or the headline magnate, but the broke one. The guy filing for bankruptcy in 2003 with $23 million in debt and a reputation that felt radioactive. At his peak, Tyson had earned hundreds of millions of dollars. Depending on who you ask, the total fight earnings land somewhere between $400 and $700 million when adjusted for inflation. But money moved through his life faster than it ever stayed. Bad management, worse decisions, and a lifestyle that didn't understand limits left him with almost nothing to show for it. The comeback didn't start with a miracle. It started slowly, awkwardly, and without much confidence from the public. Comedy cameos, speaking tours, podcasts. Tyson learned how to tell his own story before someone else told it for him. That honesty cracked the door open, and cannabis kicked it wider. Tyson 2.0 wasn't built like a typical celebrity weed brand. It leaned into self-awareness instead of polish. Products like Mike Bites edibles didn't pretend the past didn't exist. They joked about it. And strangely enough, that worked. The brand grew fast, with revenue projections climbing into the $75 to $150 million annual range as distribution expanded. The ranch became the physical heart of that ecosystem. Not just a grow site, but a destination that anchored the brand in something real. You could walk it, touch it, experience it. That mattered. Strategic visibility helped too. The Jake Paul fight introduced Tyson to a younger generation, while media appearances reframed him as reflective rather than reckless. The ranch benefits from that attention, and in return, it reinforces the idea that Tyson isn't chasing relevance. He's building infrastructure. But once the finances stabilized, something more unexpected started to define Tyson's second act. The way he chose to slow down, give back, and finally build a life that felt steady. The powerful legacy of Mike Tyson. There's a version of Mike Tyson that doesn't show up on highlight reels or pay-per-view posters, and it's the one that quietly explains everything else. This version wakes up thinking about his kids, his health, and how to avoid becoming the man he used to be. Fame still follows him, but it no longer leads. Fatherhood reshaped his priorities in ways no championship belt ever could. After years of chaos, family became structure, something solid enough to lean on. Tyson talks openly about that shift, about learning how to be present instead of powerful, and how stability, once impossible, became the real victory. That mindset shows up in his philanthropy. Through the Mike Tyson Cares Foundation, he's supported youth programs, shelters, and outreach initiatives aimed at kids growing up in environments that mirror his own childhood. The goal isn't to create champions, it's to create options. Structure before trouble, support before damage. Cannabis plays a role here too, but not in the way people expect. Tyson frames it as recovery rather than escape, especially for athletes dealing with long-term pain and mental burnout. The ranch hosts conversations around healing, mental health, and slowing down, topics that would have sounded absurd coming from him 20 years ago. That's what makes the ranch more than a flex. It's a reflection of growth. The same intensity that once fueled fear is now redirected toward building something sustainable. The discipline that created destruction is now used to maintain balance. As the desert settles into evening and the ranch lights come on, the symbolism lands quietly. A man once defined by violence now curates space for reflection, community, and growth. And with that note, we conclude our journey Mike Tyson's extraordinary and ultra-luxury cannabis ranch in California. Which aspect of this cannabis wonderland impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments. And for more such interesting peeks into the lives of rich, take a look at the channel.